All right, we have a new semester and we're starting our videos. And we are going to start always on Mondays by checking our course outline to see what we're responsible for. We won't do it on Wednesdays, but just always to check in. So today's the 27th. What we're doing today is we're learning how to digitally image mine and how to composite layers. Mining is finding good resources from the internet. Right? And then compositing is how to collage with those resources to make our own original compositions out of other people's pixels. I'm pointing this one out especially in our first video because this link to reading is our only required reading of the semester, but all the other readings, like chapter 1, is going to help with the stuff we're talking about. So if I open those up, they're linked within this document. This is the chapter that's not just about searching and finding images online, digital image mining, but it's also about the legality of using those images, something called usage rights. Things like copyright, things like Creative Commons, things like public domain, things like fair use, and how you license. And until you understand this, you cannot make any money off of digital artwork because you won't understand what people are actually buying from you. What they are buying are limited usage rights, which come under your license. So you decide how to license your work. And then ways around it, including educational spontaneous fair use, which is what we'll be using today. So you have about 2 weeks to get that reading done. You can see it's not very long. Before we discuss this in class, and you have to write something about it. Like, what are the best ways to use these resources? But I want you to be aware of it starting today, which is why it's in the course outline. The next thing we have is our first exercise. And you can see after the general topic and the reading that connects to it, we have the actions. These are the things we actually need to do within class and outside of class. Remember, about 6 hours in class per week, about 3 hours outside of class to really learn the material. It gives a unit number, so we know we're working through Unit 2. Last class, we tried to work through Unit 1. Within this unit, we are going to finish exercise number 1, which is a line art jumble exercise. And we're going to learn about some of these different resources, especially Pixabay and image search. I've kind of soured on AutoDraw. It's an old Google tool that can be fun to use to generate line art, but they haven't invested in it at all. So it's used in the demo online, but since you guys are here, we're going to use better tools. All right, next. This is due next class. So on January 29th, exercise 1 is due, which means we will work on it in today's class. We will finish it off in Wednesday's class, and we will try to submit it by next class. Right? But if you're not here next class, right, you lose those engagement points, but you're keeping up with the videos, you're trying your best, you need to get it submitted to Canvas by midnight the night it's due. That's its deadline in Canvas, so it doesn't show up as late. That's the difference between something being on time or not. All right, so let's get started on it. How do we get to Unit 2? Well, if we go to the home page of the course, you will see a nice big animated banner here that says Unit Modules. These are all the units for our course. This is our entire course. The orientation last class, image mining this class, vector shapes next class, on and on and on. The other way you can do it, the more boring way you can do it, is through modules. If you're used to Canvas and you want these, each module has these pages. They are each a different unit. And you can see everything that's coming, and you can look ahead. So let's go to Unit 2. It is called Image Mining, how to find good things online. But we're also going to do stuff with the images we find online, because this is our exercise that will introduce us to compositing, one of the major disciplines of digital art. It's when you collage with pixels. At the top of each unit, I have an intro page. This is really for the students that aren't in class experiencing it. This is them trying to catch up on their own, right? So it just gives you an overview, and it'll always start with past student examples. So this is the end product we're trying to create. But the rule for this is we are not allowed to draw or paint this project. So it's a two-dimensional digital project, but we are only allowed to modify from found pixels, which means we can erase pixels, we can stretch pixels, we can flip pixels, we can change their color, but we cannot create our own. All right? Just like if I gave you a magazine and said you need to create a collage entirely out of cutouts from this magazine. You're not allowed to draw or paint anything yourself. There's a bunch of things we're going to be learning, right? They support our learning outcomes number 4, number 1, number 2, and 3. Really, it's going to hit 4 learning outcomes in little ways because there's creativity involved. There's using multiple raster image layers, learning kind of vocabulary and technical tools like blending modes, and especially learning a professional practice in terms of image research and sourcing, right? What are we going to turn in? We're going to turn in exercise 1. That's the only thing deliverable. And we're going to look at past instructor and student examples. We can review the tutorial demo videos through our NLC YouTube page, which I'm starting right now with this video. But you can also look at past semesters examples of this. And let's go to the next page where we'll see some of those past examples. So we'll get to this on the assignment page where we'll outline it exactly. But you need to take, on a theme that you choose, you're going to take 5 different images or more from online that are line art files, black outlines, like coloring book pages. And then you are going to arrange them, cut them, warp them, twist them, bop them, and make them into your own thing. The theme for us is what you wrote on your cards last class. Your favorite children's book, cartoon, or comic strip. Right? So this one, anyone recognize the favorite book? Hunger Games. This one, anyone recognize the favorite comic? Yeah, some sort of Marvel. We got Avengers in there and Spider-Man. Favorite book? Interesting. King Arthur, it could work. This is Lord of the Rings. You have the one ring there. It could be. That could relate. This was actually from the banned book projects. So sometimes I have different themes, but you'll see. The only thing you need to know is what is your inspiration going to be, right? What is your theme? So what is, I say favorite cartoon, but it could be favorite children's book, favorite comic strip, anything that's illustrated. And what we're going to do is composite with found resources on that thing. So if mine is Greek myths, I'm going to find line art of Greek myths, and then I'm going to play with that as my collage material to make my own composition. Sometimes my students don't know what collage is, right? Because collage used to be something we all did in school all the time. It's like cheap materials with paste and magazines. But now, not so much, right? So collage is actually a pretty new art form. It's only about 100 years old. And it came out of cubism, synthetic cubism in Europe in the early 20th century. And it was using wallpaper, newspapers, pieces of material from the real world to make new works of art. Pablo Picasso is a very famous name that started using this very early on. It then extended with the advancement of affordable photography into something called photo montage, right? And we saw this especially between the world wars in Europe with people like Hannah Hook, right, doing photo montages that were critical of the National Socialist Party in Germany. So this is just a digital form of this analog art tradition. So what advantages does digital have in collage? Well, if I look at this work, which is from the 1960s, when you use just magazines or just newspapers or just wallpaper, right, you can cut it out, you can tear it, you can glue it, but you can't change it in any other way, right? You can just selectively use parts of it. In digital, we are able to stretch it, we are able to flip it, we are able to change its colors, we're even able to use it with transparency if we want to. So it's just collage with benefits, and we call it compositing. So let's continue with it. Some students wonder if I'm using other people's pixels, right? Just like collage artists thinking if I'm using other people's photos or pictures or magazines, how can I make an original artwork? Well, the whole idea is that you are creating the overall composition and message on your own theme. It is up to you to decide what that looks like. It is not determined by anyone else. And if that is the case, it is an original image. So let's look at some compositing professional work. Some by past students that do it commercially. Angela Wally was a student who took my class and then went on to use it in graphic design through Primates Design in San Antonio to do things like t-shirt design, album covers, advertising design. And you can see the kind of line art jumble used for one of her designs. Arturo Herrera is a fine artist, and he, born in Venezuela, he started his career by doing collages from Walt Disney coloring books, especially Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And now these collages go for $30,000 to $40,000. Now Disney is the most litigious corporate entity on the planet Earth. And somehow Arturo Herrera has been doing this for many decades. This is most of his newer work, which gets away from the Disney stuff, but I love the Disney stuff. Here we go. And somehow manages to not get sued. So these are some of my favorites. These I saw in the Armory show in LA in the late 90s. So this piece is actually a huge piece. And it's cutouts of actual like painted surface then put onto a canvas. But you can tell probably where all those lines come from. Not just that they're from a Disney property, but they're from a specific Disney property and a specific character or characters. But what is original about this is completely Arturo Herrera's own composition. This one is even more blatant, right? Where you see the character very clearly of Snow White, but then all identifying markers, like copyrightable content of that character, like the face design, right? The profile, the silhouette, all of that is obscured with just kind of abstract expressionist drips. So how do you get on this side of being legal? This is what's called transforming your source material. Instead of just using derivatives, you are actually transforming it and making it your own. So we're going to be talking about that, not just for this project, but going forward. So what we need to do first, we're not going to do the banned book. That's just for people who are only doing this online. We are going to do a favorite cartoon theme. So the first thing we need to do is to start choosing that theme and then looking for content, right? So we're going to skip right to the steps where we collect at least 5 images. So we have 2 ways to do this. My most preferred way for any image gathering is to use a site that already has open license images. So instead of using Google image search right away, let's try Pixabay. It's linked here. It's in our links for the course. It's something we'll use a lot. When we go to Pixabay, you'll see this, and it's stunning royalty-free images and royalty-free stock, which are just images you can use. There's even music and video and vector files on here. What does it mean to be royalty-free? It means when someone donates this to Pixabay, they are allowing that image to be used for any purpose. So it's not quite the same as public domain. We'll get into it, but it's pretty close. It's what's called a Creative Commons open license. And then Pixabay just does one other reservation on it, which calls it a Pixabay license. So I'm going to search for Greek myth. Now, because I'm not logged in, and there are benefits to logging in, which you just use an email address for, I'm going to see banner ads. So I have to skip this top row because that's all stuff you have to pay for. So if I click on one of these, it will take me to a stock site from Getty.